Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. We're gonna give a couple minutes for folks to get hopped on here. I see that we got already a few people on and waiting as we're getting ready to jump into the meat of the content, which is how to choose the right franchise for you. Go ahead and drop me your franchise questions that you have in the chat. I get so many questions and comments in the chat and via email with people asking me franchise questions, and I don't always get the opportunity to go over them or to respond to them. So make sure to drop me a comment in the chat. This is your opportunity. But you might be wondering why such the festive outfit today. And it's a little bit of a different blank scene behind me. I'm actually here in Neptune Beach, Florida, which is where our franchise is. My wife and son, we came here for the week to basically do like a little workcation and make sure that that the franchise was being taken care of. And if everyone can hear me, just drop me a comment and let me know that that you can hear me okay. And then also drop me something and let me know where you're tuning in from, what city and what state. So today I want to go over, in this video, I want to go over what are the key steps to choosing the right franchise for you. You know, I don't know if you're on my email list, you might have heard about my challenge with, thanks Maria for letting me know, heard about the challenge that I recently experienced in my own franchise. I still own one of the juice bars. Our manager recently left and put in his notice, and that created some challenges and some issues for me, and having to kind of drop everything I was doing with YouTube and my business online to get a new manager in place. Welcome, Clark from Tennessee. Good to see you, and thanks for joining us. So it's so key to choosing the right franchise, and we're going to go over that in exactly the 9 steps. So we're going to cover the 9 steps to making sure that you choose the right franchise for you, because this is super important. And if you choose the wrong franchise, one, it can cost you a lot of time in terms of your lifestyle and sacrificing some of your lifestyle with your family and your quality of life. If you wind up choosing the wrong franchise, you could wind up losing money. You could wind up losing your life savings, or you could wind up getting into a business that you don't really like and you don't really enjoy. And at the end of the day, the reason why people most often buy franchises is to quit their job, because they're tired of working for someone else and they want to be able to have more time and freedom and flexibility. And so if that's something that you can relate to, drop me a comment and let me know if you can relate to that. So let's talk about how to choose the right franchise. What are those 9 steps? Where do you start? It's really important that you follow these in sequence, because I see a lot of people that they make the mistake, they already start going towards a business, and it may not be in alignment with what it is that they want. Now, as we're going through this content, drop me any of your franchise questions in the chat. We'll be sure to get to those questions. Also, as I'm going through this, one of the things that I'm going to be doing on July 1st, I'm going to be taking 10 people through. So it's going to be a group of 10 people, and I'm going to be guiding them through this process of how to find and select the right franchise for them. So if you're wanting to go from 0 to franchise, meaning you're employed, you're thinking about owning a franchise, you know that the franchise industry is something that you're interested in, then you can go to tariqjohnson.com/consulting and apply for that. We'll talk about that more later, but let's talk about step number 1 in finding the right franchise for you. So when you think about step number 1, it's to write down a vision first. And so I realized, we'll get into the tactical, strategic, how to find a business, but this is the key foundation. This is the key foundation to getting involved in the franchise business, because if you don't know where you're going, then you could wind up choosing a business that's not in alignment with your lifestyle and the way that you want to live. So you need to write down a vision and get clear. And if you guys want to follow along with me, you can go to tariqjohnson.com/blog, On there is a post that I wrote that's called the 9 Vital Steps Before Buying a Franchise. And so when the first thing you want to do is think about how much money do you want to make in your business, right? So if you're thinking, hey, I want to make $200,000 in personal income owning a franchise business, that's great. That's realistic. Are there franchise businesses that are generating $200,000 a year in profit? The answer is yes, there are. Now, there are certain businesses, certain franchise businesses and industries that probably won't be able to support you making that sort of income. And so it's so important that you get clear about what your vision is. What do you want your lifestyle to look like? As an example, one of the things that I did not think about when we opened our first franchise and chose a juice bar business was how that would impact our life. This business, the food business, juice bar business, that's pretty much a 7-day-a-week business. We're pretty much never closed. I think we're closed on Christmas and Thanksgiving. That's it. So think about if you ran a business that pretty much never closed, how does that affect your lifestyle? And so, like, I have clients right now. I just wound up having a call with them earlier. They're like, hey, we want a Monday through Friday business. And so one of the type of the industries that we're looking at are child care related businesses and daycare businesses, because that's a Monday through Friday business. So if you're sitting back thinking, man, I really want to get into franchising, I want to quit my job, I'm frustrated, I want to have more time, more freedom, more flexibility, where if you wind up opening a business where you're relying on teenagers that call out, that don't show up to work, and a 7-day-a-week business, that may wind up being what causes you to choose the wrong franchise business for you. And so then I want you to start to think about what sort of industries or interests or different things like that excite you. And I'll go ahead and take off the outfit here now that again we're by the beach here with the family this week. I'm running this office for the week as I'm working. So I had my Floridian theme on. But step 1 is writing a vision and getting clear. Step 2 is identifying your skill sets of where you are now. I want you to think about it for a second. What are you good at? What are you really good at? And what do you really enjoy doing? Like, what sort of experience do you have in your work? As an example, I am more analytical. I'm more operationally minded. I like planning. I like strategy. I like analyzing. Although I have been in many people facing and sales roles most of my career, that's really out of my comfort zone. So when we opened our franchise in California, the first location, and actually even the one here in Florida, whenever we would have to do community events and get out in the public and really get out there and, kiss babies and shake hands, as they say, I would always get my wife to come to the event with me, because there was just a sense of anxiety that I had being in those situations and having to be all bubbly and personable, right? So for me, that's not in alignment with really my skill set. I wouldn't want to be in a role in a franchise where it's all about sales and having to, let's say, hit the phones or door knock or be out in the community constantly. I'm a little bit more of a behind the scenes person, believe it or not. I have this YouTube channel. It's kind of odd. But you have to identify what are your skill sets, right? So are you good at sales? Are you good at managing? Are you good at operations? Are you good at hiring? What do you truly enjoy doing? And then what do you strongly dislike? And so when you're looking at a franchise opportunity, this is why it's so important to really have conversations with the franchisor and the franchisees and ask them the right questions. Make sure you stick around to the end, because I'm going to go over that later on in this live. But again, when you're thinking about a franchise, you really got to imagine yourself a day in the life of what it would be like if you were running that franchise. What role would you play in that franchise? And do you realistically see yourself doing that? Can you realistically see yourself in that business? I actually remember the first time we went to our first day of training. after we had signed our franchise agreement. This was years ago now. This was probably about 4 years ago now, almost 5 years ago now. And I remember the first day of training in the store, I was like, oh, I think we made a mistake. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like doing this. And so hindsight being 2020, if I knew what I knew now, would I have gotten involved in the same business? I tried not to be a person who lives with regrets, but I'll tell you what, knowing what I know now, I'd probably choose a different path, right? So my wife and I are actively looking at franchises right now to buy. I'm going through this process myself, which is why I'm so excited to share this process with you. And so it's important to find out, what do you like? What are your skill sets? What do you dislike? Can you truly see yourself running that business? Sometimes when people say, hey, I'm really excited about this food business, this food franchise, I think the concept's really cool. I love it as a customer. And I go, hold on a second. If someone calls out on a Sunday, on a Saturday, are you going to be there in the business? Are you willing to drop whatever you're doing with your family, having fun, and stepping in? Are you okay with potentially washing dishes? I mean, mopping the floors? Doesn't mean you have to be doing this all the time, but these are some of the things where if you own a business and something happens in that business, the crap hits the fan, you might have to be involved in doing that. So number three, and it looks like we have a question, which is, and I'll pause for just a second on step 3, which is, can you elaborate on the absentee franchisee, and is it good to aim for one? Well, an absentee franchise is basically a franchise where you are not actively involved in the day-to-day of the business. Generally speaking, franchises that owners are involved in, at least in the beginning, are going to succeed at a higher rate than if you're not involved in the business. And I saw it firsthand. And I hadn't been to the store in Florida in a year. And I came back and things felt like they were kind of a mess. And so the more you're involved in your business, the better it's going to be. There are certain businesses that are probably more suited for absentee ownership. So thanks for your question there. And again, if you have any franchise questions on how do you select the right one, or whatever your franchise questions are, make sure to drop them in the chat below. We're going to go to number 3, which is finding a franchise that aligns with your vision. Again, before I jump into the meat and potatoes of number 3, if you want my help in going through this process and finding a franchise, I'm launching a group program where I'm going to guide 10 people on exactly how to go from 0 to franchise, how to go from whatever you're doing now that you don't like to owning a business, to owning a franchise, going through that whole process of how do you find them? How do you research them? How do you create your vision? We're going to go through all these steps in depth so that after 6 months, you have signed a franchise agreement and you're going to be opening your franchise. It's going to be super exciting. If you want to apply for that, make sure to go to tariqjohnson.com/consulting. And at some point, Maria will drop a link in the chat, and you can click on that link. So number 3 is finding a franchise that aligns with your vision. So remember, in step 1, you're crafting a vision of what you want your life to look like. Like, what do you want your days to look like? What do you want to experience? How much money do you want to make? What do you want your lifestyle to look like? So that as you are searching and looking for franchises, you're asking yourself, does this franchise align with the vision that I have for my life and the life of my family? Think about that for a second. I mean, that's a really powerful question. Does this franchise align with the vision for my life and the vision that I have for my family? So does this franchise have the ability to create the amount of income that I may want to create in my life? Does this franchise offer me the freedom and flexibility that I would like in my life, right? And here's one thing that I recommend that you do is to create a scorecard. Create a scorecard with 10 characteristics of each franchise to rate them through. So create a list of 10 characteristics that are important to you. So one could be lifestyle, right? One could be income opportunity. One could be passion for the industry. One could be type of employees. So as you're creating the scorecard of 5, 7, 8, 10 items, you're scoring the franchises that you're looking at. And so it's a really tactical and strategic way that you can go through looking at franchises and just score them. And maybe you would be surprised at what you think you are interested in when you actually go through the scorecard and score them based on the characteristics. Maybe a business that you didn't expect has a higher score than one that you didn't expect, right? So that scorecard is super, super key. And you really want to think about overall the franchise system. Who are the people running the business? What's their growth trend, their brand presence, their leadership team, and their experience? You really want to make sure that the business is aligning with your overall vision. And so for us, again, when we first chose our first franchise, one of the parts that aligned for us was that it was about a health product. And so that aligned with our life because at that time, my wife and I were making juice and smoothies at home. So it aligned with our overall life. But some of you might be in the service-based industry, right? Maybe that's your experience. There are a lot of great service-based franchises. Home services franchises are really interesting concepts right now. Roofing businesses, tile businesses, power washing businesses. Here's what's beautiful and amazing about franchises. There's something for everyone. So no matter what your skill set is, no matter what your background is, you can find a franchise that aligns with your vision for your life. All right. So let's jump to number 4. Before we jump to number 4, Carlos asked, after the video, could you post more of those characteristics to consider? That's a great question, Carlos. I'll note that as a piece of content to work on. But yeah, I mean, some characteristics I'd think about just right off the bat is lifestyle, right? Rating the lifestyle of the business in accordance with your vision, rating the financial opportunity, rating the employees, right? So do you want to work with more professionally minded employees? Do you want to work with more educated, highly skilled employees? Well, that's going to lead you to a totally different type of business than a food business, right? Where you might be hiring minimum wage employees or people that are in college or different things like that. And so the characteristics really should be about you and what's important to you. But yeah, I'm definitely happy to post a piece of content around some of those characteristics to consider. I see we have an SBA loan question. I'm going to hop to number 4 real quick, and then we'll jump back to that question on the SBA. So number 4, step 4, and again, you can follow along to these steps at tariqjohnson.com/blog, and there's a blog post. And if we can actually get that link posted in the chat, there's a blog post called 9 Vital Steps Before Buying a Franchise. 9 vital steps before buying a franchise. So number 4 is to get your financing and legal team set up. This is so important. And you'll notice that I put this before I even have you looking for franchise opportunities. We're already on step number 4, right? And you haven't even put in inquiries yet for the franchisor, right? So here's why that's important, and you do that on the front end, is because you want to be in a position to pull the trigger quickly when the opportunity arises. As an example, I have clients that I'm working with right now. They're based out of California. They're a husband and wife, and they want to buy a business or a franchise. And so one of the things that I had them do early on in the process was identify their financial situation, right? So understanding what's your liquid assets, doing an audit, right? That's one of the first things you have to do is, where are you financially? What's your liquid assets? What's your net worth? Because that's going to determine what sort of franchise you can buy. Like, what if you start getting really excited about a franchise and it turns out they require a $300,000 liquid net worth and a $750,000 net worth, and you have $100,000 liquid and a $300,000 net worth. Well, now you got all excited. You went down the rabbit hole, and you're not going to be able to qualify for that business. So with these clients, we identified we went through a whole process to identify their financial situation, and then identified that a home equity line of credit was going to put them in the position to be ready to pull the trigger on a business. So they're getting ready to close on their home equity line of credit, and we're still figuring out what franchise and what business is right for them. But once they choose, that funding issue and taking all this time now to deal with funding challenges, that's already done. That's already secured, and they're in a position to be able to move forward quickly. All right. So you want to make sure to get your financing and your financial situation and your legal team set up. So how are you going to fund the business? Right? What does your financial situation look like? How much money do you have liquid? Are you going to go SBA? Are you going to go home equity? Are you going to sell some investments to fund the business? Have this in mind, because the franchisor is going to ask you as well. And again, it's going to determine what sort of franchise you can get. Start applying now for your financing. If you're planning on going the home equity route, start now. There's no better time than now to start the financing process. Now, if you start the financing process and you're going SBA and they say, hey, you need to have a business first, that's fine. Get as far as you can get with where you are in the process with your financing. And then you also want to start to talk to an attorney, and you want to start to get your talk to a tax person so that you can understand what sort of entity it is that you need to create. Should you create an LLC? Should you create an S Corp? These are some of the foundational things that you want to have in place. One of the mistakes we made, my wife and I signed our franchise agreement in our names personally, just because I just wasn't thinking about this. If I had had these 9 steps, I would have known, oh, duh, set up my entity, then sign the franchise agreement. Now, most of the time, that's an easy fix. You can just have the franchise agreement transferred to your entity, but it's something important to think about. You want to make sure that you have that set up in the beginning. So we're going to jump to number 5 in a little bit. I see that we've got a couple more questions. So let's jump to some of those questions. Again, if you guys are going through the franchise process, you want to be guided step by step along the way, go to tariqjohnson.com/consulting. And I'm going to be teaching people in depth this framework as they're looking for franchises. It's going to be a 6-month long program. You're going to go from 0 to franchise. You're going to do it yourself. I'm going to teach you all the framework, but you're going to get to hop on calls with me every week. You're going to get to learn from other people in the group. It's going to be this amazing mastermind where at the end of the 6 months, you're going to have a signed franchise agreement and well on your way to creating the life that you want in the business world. But before we jump to number 5, which is submitting the request for consideration, let's take a look at some of these questions that we got here. So Modern Nutrition Center asks, if SBA loan is your only option to get financing for a franchise and you were denied, what do you recommend then? Well, here's my overall perspective. Just because you got denied once doesn't mean you'll get denied again. So I'm a big believer in when you have an obstacle, you go over, around, underneath, through, you figure out whatever you have to do to get on the other side and accomplish that goal. So I would reach out to additional lenders and see if there's someone else who would approve me. So if you only applied with one lender, there are a lot of different lenders out there. Keep in mind, an SBA loan, it's a lender that's lending you the money, like a Bank of America, a Wells Fargo, whoever. SBA is just guaranteeing a portion of that loan. So if you go to Bank of America and apply for an SBA loan, just because Bank of America might decline you doesn't mean Wells Fargo would, or doesn't mean BBVA Compass would, or SunTrust would. So I would apply to multiple places and I would keep applying. That's number 1. And then without knowing your situation, you say SBA loan is your only option. Is it? Do you have money in retirement accounts? Is Rob's rollover for business an option? I noticed Carlos just asked about getting a loan against your 401k. Yes, I am very familiar with that. Keep in mind, my background is financial advising. I've had my investment licenses for almost 14 years now. So I've advised thousands of clients on their financial situations and 401ks and retirement accounts and all these different things. The other thing is maybe look at putting together a group of investors for your franchise. Doing promissory notes with friends and family, borrowing money from them, having a legal binding document where you're paying them interest. There's all sorts of ways to get creative and resourceful if you don't have the money. My belief is if you're super committed, 100% committed, you'll figure out a way to find the money. No matter what the embarrassment or discomfort you have to go through, you'll find the money. So there's a lot of different options. I made a video on that as well, Modern Nutrition Center. I have a video called How to Buy a Franchise with No Money Down, and it's basically tapping into that resourceful state. Curtis, how do you figure out what franchise you want to do? That's the whole point of this live stream. That's a 9-step process that we're going through. You can also go to tariqjohnson.com/blog. It's the 9 vital steps before buying a franchise. And if you want to be guided throughout that process, I'm going to be taking 10 people through that process in a group format over 6 months to go from don't know what franchise I want, or I know what franchise I want and I'm kind of stuck, or I'm not really sure, I'm afraid to pull the trigger, to 6 months later, I have a signed franchise agreement, and who knows, you could already have a signed lease and be getting ready to open up your business as well. I'll tackle Carlos's question real quick, and then we'll hop to number 5, which is getting a loan against your 401k. So overall, yes, in order to get a loan against your 401k, it has to be through one of your current employers. Let me just turn this light on because the sun is setting. Just bear with me for a moment here while I get this light turned on. All right, that's better. Okay, so getting a loan against your 401k, it's got to be with your current employer in order to get a loan against your current 401k. Here's the risk, though, right? Let's say you have $200,000 in your 401k, and you work with your current employer, and you decide to take out a loan for $100,000. One of the benefits are the interest on that loan you pay back to yourself in your 401k. So you're not paying interest to a bank, you're paying interest back into your 401k. And overall, the entirety of that money is still working for you. Here's the thing. If let's say you do that, you start a franchise and the franchise starts doing really well and you decide to leave your job. Well, after you leave your job, if you have the loan on the 401k still, let's say you still have a $100,000 loan, you have 60 days to pay back that loan. If you don't pay back that loan within 60 days after leaving your employer, counts as taxable income. So if you plan on leaving your employer, taking out a loan against your 401k can be risky if you don't have a way to pay back that money back into the 401k once you leave. So I don't know, I won't go too much down the rabbit hole, but you have a lot of technical expertise there. All right, step number 5 in choosing the right franchise for you is actually submitting a request for consideration with the franchisor. This is where the fun begins. This is where it gets really exciting, right? Because now you've identified your vision, your lifestyle, what it is that you want. You've done an audit of all of your strengths, right? You have an idea of what that lifestyle is. You're aware of your financial situation. You started to take a look at franchises. Now you start submitting inquiries to those franchise companies to then put your hat in the ring, basically. So basically, this is where you start to have conversations with the franchisor. So a request for consideration, it can be very basic. With some franchisors, it can be very detailed. most of the time you're going to just be putting in your name, phone number, the area that you're in. They're often going to ask you for your liquid net worth and your net worth. So if you're following my process, you're going to be ahead of most people who are just looky-loos, who are just putting in their information for franchises and not really sure because they're just wandering around. They have no vision. They are not clear about what lifestyle that they want to live. They haven't done an audit of what their skill sets are, what they're excited about. And so they're just putting in 20 different inquiries and then never really actually following through. Here's my perspective. You front load, in order to choose the right franchise, you front load the work on the front end. You get clear about your vision first. You get clear about your lifestyle first. You do all these things that I'm walking you through. And then you narrow it down to only 3 to 5 companies that you want to go deep with and really learn a lot about, and where you can utilize the rest of my process and do really solid due diligence, as opposed to looking at a bunch of different opportunities, or some people just one opportunity because they get excited about one. So in this process, realize that franchisors are interviewing you as much as you are interviewing them, right? So although franchisors may want to sell you because they want you to be in their franchise system, there's times where franchisors will reject you, especially the really good franchisors, the really good ones that already have a solid name and a reputation. If you're not the right fit and you're not responsive, and they might go, nope, sorry, you're not the right fit, even if you have the financial wherewithal to be able to buy that franchise. So something important to think about, and that's why I put in step number 5, submit your information accurately and thoroughly. Be detailed. This is your first impression with the franchisor. So hopping on to number 6 here. So this is where we begin the franchise overview process. And I want to warn you, warning, this is where things can start to move really fast. I've experienced it. Some clients that I work with have experienced it. Once you submit your information to the franchisor is going to want to have a conversation with you. They're usually going to want to learn more about you. What are your goals, your background? And then boom, you're off to the ground running, right? And this is where you're going to go over the overview with the franchisor. They're going to tell you more about their business. And then you're going to gradually go through the steps, which is what I'll keep going over here. As you go through that franchise overview process, take notes, ask questions, really think about, I'm making a life transforming decision. Like, I'm going to put my life savings into this business, or I'm going to take out a loan for hundreds of thousands of dollars to put in this business. I'm going to quit my job to start this business. So you really want to be thorough in that process. And again, reference back to your scorecard that I referenced before. And so that's a very important part of the process. Number seven is the FDD, the franchise disclosure document. This is so important, guys. Look, let me say this. Do not be afraid to pull the plug on a franchise that you're looking at because something is off with the FDD. The FDDs are there for a reason. The FDDs are there to protect you. The FDD is a legal disclosure that is required. All franchisors have to have an FDD, okay? The franchises are regulated by the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, okay? So all franchisors have to have an FDD. And as you're going through step number 7 to figure out if it's the right franchise for you, the FDD is going to tell you a lot of stuff. And so one of the things I have here in the blog post, again, you can find the 9 steps at tariqjohnson.com/blog. Again, the title is 9 Vital Steps Before Buying a Franchise. And again, if you want to go from 0 to franchise over a 6-month period, go to tariqjohnson.com/consulting, and you can apply there to be one of the 10 that get taken through this process and go from 0 to owning a franchise after 6 months. But when you're reviewing the FDD, look for any red flags. Look for any red flags in the FDD. This is where they have to disclose lawsuits. This is where they have to disclose how many locations or units were opened or closed in recent years. So if a franchise, as an example, if you're looking at a franchise, you're really excited about it, and you see in the FDD that last year they closed 15 locations and only opened 5. Well, ding, 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 that's a red flag. Hey, when you're on one of the calls with the franchisors, why did you guys close 15 locations last year? Understand why. It's going to tell you a lot about the business. Maybe the business is dying. Maybe they did a really good job selling people and getting people into the franchise, but the concept's not doing well, or the franchisor just isn't relevant anymore, or they're not innovating. So the FDD is a really, really important part of the process, and it's important that you're thorough here. It's important that you're thorough because this can make or break your financial future. This can determine if you succeed and thrive in a business or if you wind up losing a lot of money in a franchise business. All right. Look at the initial fees. Look at the cost to build out in the FDD. Overall, here's the thing. If the FDD says it takes between $200,000 to $350,000 to open, plan on the higher side, okay? So if you're thinking, and you can only get funding for $250,000 because you already got pre-qualified, well, if I were you, I'd plan to get funding for the higher amount on the FDD range, just in case. And some of that depends on where you are and what state. And right now, the cost of construction is sky high. I don't know if you guys are following what's going on with the market right now. Cost of real estate is sky high. Cost of construction and materials are sky high because of everything that happened with COVID. So it's something important to think about. Take a look at item 19. Item 19 is where franchisors disclose, if they do disclose, any financial representations. This is like a whole nother rabbit hole to go down. Again, in my group coaching program, I'm going to be walking people through step by step. I mean, we're going to spend 1 to 2 weeks just on each step. And I'm going to go in detail, guide them through the process as you're actively looking for franchises and following this process so that at the end of the process, the end of the 6 months, you have signed a franchise agreement. You have a franchise that you're starting that you feel absolutely confident is the right fit for you. So let's move on to number 8, which is doing your due diligence. So you might think that doing your due diligence is going through the FDD. Well, that's part of doing the due diligence is going through the FDD. Here's the main part of doing your due diligence is talking to the franchisor and asking them questions and talking to other franchisees. And so at tariqjohnson.com/blog, there are 2 other posts. One is 10 questions to ask franchise owners. The other is 25 questions to ask a franchisor. This is where you get to be really detailed, guys. So again, there's no one magic formula in choosing the right franchise for you. It's being consistent and being thorough throughout the entire process, right? So skip one of these steps, skip 2 or 3 of these steps, and you might wind up landing a franchise or being with a franchise that you wind up hating or that makes you miserable. Like, this is reality. I mean, there are people that sign up for franchises and totally regret it. And their life is turned upside down. They lose money, their lifestyle, their family are affected, and it winds up being a really bad decision for them. This is why I created this framework. This is why I have this YouTube channel. So if you go through this process step by step by step by step, you go through this process, you're going to be in a really, really, really good position to making sure that you're choosing the right franchise for you. And so come up with 7 to 10 questions to ask existing franchise owners. Again, you can use some of the questions that I have on that blog post of the 10 questions to ask franchise owners. And then talk to at least 3 to 5 franchise owners and go through, ask them the same questions so you have consistency. Here's the thing. Sometimes people talk to one franchise owner. They talk to one franchise owner and they get scared. Maybe they hear something from that one franchise owner and so they hear something bad from the one franchise owner and then they decide that the franchise isn't for them. Well, keep in mind, out of 100 people, let's say 100 franchisees, you might have 80 of them that are satisfied with the franchisor. You might have 15 of them that love the franchisor and the franchise. You might have 5 of them that absolutely hate it, that can't stand it. They've had a terrible experience, right? There are franchise owners that have 2 very different experiences. One person could be a franchisee, make a ton of money, be doing great, absolutely love it. The other person could absolutely bomb, right? So it's not necessarily about the franchise as much as it is about you and who you are and how you show up and how you run your business. So it's important to talk to 3 to 5 franchise owners and ask them the same questions. So then you can go, okay, when I asked the question of if you had to start all over, would you do it again? And all 5 of the franchise owners with the franchise company said, no, absolutely not. Well, that's telling you something, right? Or if they all said, yeah, absolutely, we love it, that's telling you something. So again, all of these steps are important pieces of the puzzle to choosing the right franchise for you. If you skip one of these steps, it can have bad consequences. So make sure you follow these steps. Also, go visit a few, if you can. If it's a retail location, go visit the franchise. If there's one locally in your area, go drive an hour or 2 hours if there's not one in your area and go experience it as a customer. Call it, pretend to be a customer and get some insight. What are the experience like? Do the employees seem happy? Kind of ask the employees questions as you go in as a customer. Don't tell them that you're looking for a franchise, but go in. Hey, how do you like working here? How are you guys doing? Are you guys busy? When's your slow time? When's your busy time? You can ask them questions out of curiosity that you'll be able to get a lot of information. And so last but not least, and so that's just step number 8, doing your due diligence. Last but not least, number 9, and before we get into the last step here, and yeah, Maria, it looks like it looks like the links are not dropping for some reason. So let me see if I can do it and drop these links real quick. So let's see if it shows up. There is, oh, she just added it to the video description. That's perfect. So I'm dropping 2 links here in the video. One link is to apply for that group coaching program that I'm going to be taking people through that want to go from 0 to franchise. So you want to be a franchise owner, you want help with the process, you want to make sure you're making the right decision. Go apply at tariqjohnson.com/consulting. It's going to be absolutely amazing. After 6 months, you have a signed franchise agreement ready to open up your own franchise. Just dropped the link to tariqjohnson.com/blog and recently have 3 very detailed posts there on 10 questions asked franchise owners, top 25 questions asked a franchisor, and the 9 vital steps before buying a franchise. Super, super key, super important. So make sure to check that out. Step number 9 is attend the franchise discovery day. So discovery day, still keep in mind, by this point, you've gone through a massive process. I mean, you started out with one clearly defining what you want your life to look like, how much money you want to make, how the franchise impacts your lifestyle, what sort of experiences do you want to have, right? You're auditing your skill sets. You've gone through this whole process. You've done a ton of legwork. By the time you get to discovery day, you should be very decisive, yay or nay. Yes, I want to do this franchise. No, I don't want to do this franchise. At this point, you should not be kicking the tires anymore, right? And you should not be afraid to pull the trigger. If you are, that's one of the things that I'm going to support people with in that 0 to franchise group coaching program, right? Is what do you do when you've got all the information? You've got all the information that you need. You've been thorough. You're just scared to pull the trigger. You just can't seem to get yourself to make a decision because you're so scared of making the wrong decision. Sometimes that's just when you need that gentle push and you need that gentle coaching. But, Discovery Day is an opportunity for you to really get to know the corporate support team, home office support, and the people that work for the franchisor even more, and really have a thorough understanding of who are the people that you might be working and interacting with as a franchisee that are with the franchisor, right? Do you resonate with these people? Do you like these people? Do you have a rapport? Do you feel like you can trust them? Can you connect with them? Do you feel like they care about you in you succeeding, right? Or do you get the sense that they're so big and they've got, 2,000 franchisees that you're just going to be lost in the shuffle and they're not going to really care much about you and your situation and whether you succeed or not? And keep in mind that depending upon the franchisor, these steps could be in different places. So sometimes franchisors want you to attend a discovery day earlier on in the process. So sometimes discovery day could be above number 7 or step number 8. So it could be you're doing your discovery day first, and then the last step is doing your due diligence. It really just depends. But note any red flags during discovery day, any cultural misfits or disorganization at the corporate level, right? If your experience has been stellar, the franchisor has been super organized, they've communicated clearly, they've set expectations. How you do anything is how you do everything. Then you get a sense of how they operate as a company. And, if they'll be a good franchisor for you and a good steward of helping you throughout the process. If the process has been a mess for you and they've been scattered and they take really long time to get back to you and make decisions, that's a red flag. That's something to think about. And so, if there's one thing that, I can leave you guys with is that it's easy to get really emotional during the franchise process and looking for an opportunity. It's excited, to get really excited about an opportunity, and then your excitement jades your logical thinking and you don't go through all of the steps. Number 2, it's easy to get really fearful or scared to pull the trigger or really uncertain and then procrastinate and not pull the trigger. And so again, either of those things are the place that you don't want to be. The point of this process is choosing a franchise for you should not be a long, drawn out, forever process, right? When you go through these steps, it's a methodical, strategic, tactical process that you're going through where it's step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then you're ready to make a decision because you already know you did all of the legwork on the front end. What happens is what I see, because I have so many people reach out to me, leaving me comments and emailing me. People get excited about one franchise or they're thinking about franchising and they're just thinking about it, right? And they just start looking around and they're just wandering. It's like they're lost because they're looking at 7, 8 different things. They're looking at 7, 8 different franchises and industries, and then you feel lost. Simplicity is better, right? You ever heard the term less is more? So if you want to look at franchises to just explore without the intention of actually making a decision, great, have fun. You can waste 1 or 2 years of your life just wandering around. But if you want to go through a process because you're fed up at work, right? Because you want to have more freedom and flexibility, you want to spend more time with your family, you're tired of having to answer to someone else, you want to be more in control of your life and how much money you make and your happiness, and you want to do something that you're passionate about or interested in, then you want to go through this process. And again, my 6-month program that I'm going to take people through, 0 to franchise, we're going to go through this process with 10 other people that are ready to make a decision and find the right franchise for them. And by the end of the 6 months, they're going to be excited to sign a franchise agreement and be starting a franchise that they're excited about, that's in alignment with their goals, their vision, their values, and what it is that they want to create for themselves and their family and their skill sets, then that program is going to be really amazing, because we're going to go through this process. We're going to be getting on calls almost every week for 6 months, and you're going to be finding franchises. We're going to be talking about it as a group, and it's going to be a really amazing and fun journey. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to see, what happens from this process and this program, and people going through the steps with accountability and structure, and me hopping on these calls with them weekly, and the other individuals that are ready to make that transition. Because I can tell you that, although when I look back, I think, wow, I could have chosen a franchise that was more in alignment with current lifestyle. What we chose at that time, not having a family and having weekends available to us, what we chose then is different than what my wife and I would choose now. Having a family, having experienced what we experienced, but owning a franchise is what was step number one for me in transitioning out of my full-time job, right? And this was strategic. This was planned. I mean, I was in my role as a financial advisor making as much as $35,000 a month at work, like excited and scared, going, one, I can't believe I made that much money in a month. That's super exciting. And for some of you, that may not sound like a lot of money. For some of you, it may sound like a lot. My point is not to impress you. My point is that I was going, oh, wow, how am I ever going to leave this? Right? Because it's so easy to feel stuck when you're doing well. Like, it's easier when work totally sucks and you're miserable, or you just got laid off and you're in a situation where you have to figure something out. It's easier to be more decisive because you're in fight or flight mode. And most of the time, most people, especially if they have family, they're going to fight, right? They're going to figure something out. But some of you might be in a situation where you're comfortable, like you're sort of frustrated at work. You've wanted to be an entrepreneur for a long time, but you're comfortable. You're making a good income. You're moving up the corporate ladder, right? And so it's harder to get yourself in a place to make a decision when you're in that space. And for me, franchising was the beginning, opening up that first franchise, buying the second location, and then which led to everything that I'm doing now. And then my wife and I are now looking at different franchise opportunities right now to be able to pull the trigger on. So, guys, I hope you guys got some value out of this live. I'm going to, for the month of June, I'm going to be doing a live every Tuesday night. I know today's Wednesday. I backed it up a day because of the Memorial Day holiday in the US. So I did it on Wednesday this week. But every Tuesday for the rest of the month, it's going to be either 7:30 p.m. Eastern time or 8 p.m. Eastern time. Make sure that you're on my email list so you get notified of when we go live. But I'm going to be doing these lives, and I'm going to be answering your franchise questions, and I'm going to be going through the process and teaching you some franchise nuggets and how to make sure that you can choose the right franchise for you so that you can finally step into your vision of what it is that you want to create in your life. So make sure to go to tariqjohnson.com/blog to check out those resources. If you want to be one of the 10 people that are part of that Zero to Franchise group that over the next 6 months successfully signs a franchise agreement, and you're able to go throughout that entire process and feel great about the franchise that you choose, and have me guide you step by step along the way, and then make sure to go to tariqjohnson.com/consulting, and you can apply for the program there. There are going to be some requirements. You need to have at least $50,000 liquid in order to be able to qualify for the program. So you need to have at least $50,000 liquid to be able to qualify for the program, because in order really to get into any franchise, usually you need to have at least $50,000. And so this individual's name is written in Arabic, so I can't read it, but it's my pleasure. I'm honored to be here to help you and to be your guide. And I created this YouTube channel because there just really wasn't any great quality information about franchising out there. on YouTube and from a franchise owner's perspective. And I just wanted to share my experience. And don't get me wrong, just because I'm on here sharing this information and teaching it, I've made a lot of mistakes along the way. I just wanted to share the mistakes that I made. I've documented some of those mistakes. I've learned from those mistakes, and I've gone, okay, what do I wish I would have known? And then that's what I'm teaching. That's what I'm sharing with you guys here on YouTube, because I really believe that franchising is really a great option for some people. It provides you with a method and structure and an operating system in which to run a business. There's so many people that would never be entrepreneurs or own a business if it wasn't for franchising. And actually, I'll leave you with this. I'll part you with this. Have you watched my latest video that I just posted live? When did it go live? I think it went live yesterday, about how many franchises were in the shopping center across the street from us in Orlando. Go watch that video if you haven't watched it. It's really interesting and very fascinating. But guys, thank you so much for sticking on here. It was an absolute pleasure and honor. And I will see you guys next week.